Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Amazon, Warner Brothers, New Line, animation, Adult Swim, books, movies, games, and all the latest gossip. And boy, is this going to be a big show.
Do you mean accurately news and gossip and maybe a couple of clarifications along the way so that we know the difference between them? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday. If you can hear my voice, you are hearing the sound waves that are coming out of my vocal cords because of the vibrations of the muscles in my larynx. You learned all about this in biology class, didn't you? Well, anyways, here we are. Welcome to another Torn Tuesday. My name is Clifford, and that there is Justin right there. And we are broadcasting to you live from various points and places around California, but at least we're here. Not broadcasting from Scum and Villainy Cantina, although we will be back there very soon with our friends. Hello, Justin. Nice to have you here. Yeah, I wanted to talk to everybody today. Here at the One Ring, we're always talking about J.R.R. Tolkien and his works, his legacy, his literature, and a lot of the time,
fans. We've got
a lot of the time we're talking about his fans. And yes, we're talking about his fans.
Colum Taylor from Wednesday Morning in Scotland, coming to us from the future. Anyone watching in New Zealand, which I'm sure there's some people in New Zealand watching from the future. Hello. I see some of our regulars in the YouTube and the Facebook chat. Sean, Nigel, Imran. Great to see you guys, Julia. It's just great. You know,
it's great headline, to have you all here. Certainly, it is wonderful to have you all here. Yes,
we're going to dive deep into all the latest things we've heard, but this is breaking news today. Cliff loves it when I do this at the top of the show. Cliff, breaking news. There's a new interview with Benjamin Walker, one of the actors on Lord of the Rings. I don't remember seeing his name cross our desk, but they've announced like 50 people. And my memory might be hazy. For some reason, this guy was not on our radar. Benjamin Walker, he's in Liam Neeson's new Netflix movie show, but he's also in Lord of the Rings. And he is quoted saying, check it out.
You know how often they say reported budget of $465 million? And you know how often I keep saying, no, it's a lot more than that.
It's a lot more than that, but
it's a lot more than that. Yes.
So Benjamin Walker, I want to call him Stephen. Benjamin Walker says there's a lot of talk about the money, as you just pointed out, but I kind of feel like that's what you need to do it right. It's like if you found someone you're in love with and you want to buy them a ring, you got to do the best you can to show that you're committed to it. And it's not unlike that. This is not a legendarium that you want to skimp on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like that concept. This is not a legendarium you want to skip on, and
I mean that's
maybe also it's taking care of your performers who are hardworking performers in your show. Maybe taking care of them is also something you don't want to skimp on.
We'll get to that. So we should celebrate the budget. Look, we should celebrate that Lord of the Rings is the biggest budget in the history of television. Because
there's something to celebrate about that. Well, there's a lot of complaints and cynicism about the really gross things about capitalism and what's going on with Jeff Bezos, blah blah blah. But aside from all that, as a counterpoint, I do appreciate that they decided to pick up this intellectual property and throw all of the money and the resources at this particular one, more than others. Like there's no other show, not Carnival Row and not The Boys, which is adored by fandom everywhere. But they've never thrown as much money at anything as much as they've thrown a lot of money at the Lord of the Rings. And that does say something about them wanting to give it right. They want to get it right. To give it their all. They want to give it their all. Yeah,
to compare. Sure. The last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones were some of the most expensive television in history.
That is true.
To give you a concept of just how much money they're spending on average, Lord of the Rings has a per episode budget that is 3 times the Game of Thrones budget.
3 times.
3 times larger than the Game of Thrones budget.
Math is hard for me sometimes, but I can still understand that much.
Well, Cliff, but let's get, rather than talk about money, I want to point out that, quote, this is not a legendarium that you want to skimp on. Mm-hmm. I believe that it is the first time we've heard any actor from Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, or the Amazon show refer to this world as the legendarium.
Oh, I don't know. No, I don't know. Maybe somewhere in some other press interviews, one of the other actors may have referred to it as a legendarium, but
I don't think so, because as all the fans watching, we're very familiar with the appendices, and we've watched everything to do with Lord of the Rings. I promise you, if there's an interview on YouTube about Lord of the Rings with any of the actors, we've probably watched it 10 times, all of us. So it's interesting that in his very first public comments about this show, he uses the term legendarium,
which is to suggest what we know about the literature as a connected series of legends. That is a convenient term which has been used throughout a lot of fandom and scholarship for a long time to refer to Professor Tolkien's broader scale of connected legends that may be separated by thousands and thousands of years, but they are connected to each other in the bigger scale of Arda. Yeah.
The fact that the first words out of his mouth, the first words out of almost any actor's mouth associated with the show, he mentions a legendarium. Does this mean there's a chance now that the show itself will be called Legendarium, the Lord of the Rings?
No.
No. You don't want to put any weight on that word?
No. Why? No. I mean,
all right, we'll move on. Further,
I mean, particularly what's particularly interesting of the actor using that terminology, it might indicate that he's more of a well-read, more of a literary fan who's read more of the texts and the books of Professor Tolkien. Maybe that's what that means. But I don't think the marketing department is going to say like,
"Oh, show named the Legendarium." That's interesting. People in chat I thought would be open to calling the show the Legendarium.
I would be happy. I personally would be happy if the marketing department would let that fly. But I think that also might be considered a clumsy expression, the Legendarium of Middle Earth. I mean, I think it's cool because it's nerdy enough for me. I like that a lot.
But are there any other TV shows that go by a name that is not the same as the books? Arrow? The show is not called Green Arrow. It's just called Arrow.
Oh, well, I don't know.
The John Wick TV show is not called John Wick. It's called The Continental, because that's what it's about. The Continental.
Well,
it's in the John Wick universe.
If you're mentioning Keanu Reeves suddenly, John Wick, and I would say that the movie he was in, Constantine, was based on the comic book called Hellblazer. It should have been called Hellblazer the whole time, even when NBC had the TV series and introduced Constantine. That was the name of the show. They've never named the show properly Hellblazer or the movies in various incarnations. But there you go. I don't even think that the Warner Brothers animated feature films that have Justice League Dark and John Constantine in his other feature films, they're animated, they never properly call it Hellblazer. So there are circumstances where a big recognizable intellectual property can use a different name. Let's talk about the confusion between James Cameron's Avatar and the Nickelodeon animated series Avatar.
Let's not get into that, but let's go further.
Let's not get into that. Why not?
It's like actor Michael Walker. He actually describes the audition process. He says it was a long audition process for Lord of the Rings, and then I didn't hear from them for a few months. I mean, the whole world was struggling to figure out what we were going to do next at that point. And then one of the showrunners, J.D. Payne, called me and pitched the part and pitched the commitment, which is large. The commitment of time, which is large. And I could hear on the phone that there was a PA system and a lot of noise in the background. And I still wasn't sure. And I said, JD, where are you? And he said, I'm at the hospital. He said, and I said, are you okay? And he said, no, my wife's having a baby. The showrunner is doing casting calls from the hospital where he's having a baby.
Is he that busy that they can't let him go to the hospital with his wife and have a baby? Oh my goodness.
Cliff,
no, I don't even. I gotta lower my volume on this. Sorry.
You're saying that like it's a negative. I mean, I'm excited to hear that the showrunners, the Peter Jacksons of Amazon's Middle Earth show, like the guys in charge, are still show running from the maternity ward of while his wife is in labor.
Okay.
Doesn't that give you a sense of the commitment and the love and commitment the showrunners have to the show?
Maybe it means that some things are more important. Like, I am impressed that they make themselves available to their crew. Hello, I'll say that. Okay, if the showrunner is otherwise distracted with a minor little thing like his wife having a newborn baby, I'll say I'm impressed that he makes himself available. But the other half of my brain is thinking, oh, why doesn't the production let him have a day to himself, that one time in his life when that baby is being born? And I just think to myself, good grief. Okay. All right. I don't know what else to say about that. Hey, hello everybody in the YouTube chat. Everyone's there with us. There's Princess Toy Nerd.
We go further in the interview, and he says, an actor from the show in his first public interview, he says, I really can't say a lot, and here's the thing. It's usually annoying when they tell you not to talk about it. On this one, I kind of agree with them because there's so much attention and because so much happens. It's important that we do protect it, the show. So I really can't say a lot other than you will be glad you knew so little when you see it.
Oh, boy. Wow. Okay. Oh, boy. Well, okay.
Cliff, your initial reaction.
My initial reaction is really, seriously, I sometimes like not being spoiled. I really am sometimes that person who will be like, don't show me the trailers for the Marvel film that's coming up, because I want to be surprised and I would like to have those elements of the story open up naturally, as they would naturally happen in the telling of the tale. Not to have all of it. You ever watch a movie trailer and you say to yourself, oh my gosh, they just told the entire plot and ruined everything. They just told everything, including second act twist, third act twists, plot surprises. I do hate the spoilers, but again, I sound like Mr. Ambivalent today. I do think it is important in terms of marketing that they let the fans start getting excited about seeing something. And we have had such a dearth of information and images and visuals, and the information that we've been getting recently has been like, oh, somebody may or may not have gotten hurt on the set. We're not getting like, hey, here's a first look at costumes, or something positive and uplifting, or look at our locations where we shot, and here's a silhouette of somebody against a landscape, something that's not too revealing, but they're not even teasing us with any glimpses of anything. So
and here's the actor saying, normally I would agree with y'all, but the actor's saying in this particular case, it's a good thing you don't know what's coming. So let me find the quote again. Let me read verbatim. And this is from Benjamin Walker, one of the stars of Lord of the Rings. He says, "You will be glad you knew so little when you see it."
All right, we'll be talking about that in another year when we actually see it. Okay, so let's put that comment in the time capsule for today.
Right. So, chat room, I love to see your comments. I see some that are saying this sounds ominous. Having a baby seems like a good time to take a break. So, chat room, please tell us what is your opinion on what you just heard? Like the showrunners still working at the hospital when his wife is having a baby. You'd think like, hey, I'm out for a little bit, does this mean you got no paternity break?
What would your wife say? Let's just imagine if you were married, what would your wife say to you if she realizes you're not getting off the phone to help her through labor and you're taking a work phone call from your work instead of helping her through labor? What do you think your wife would think of that? So, you know what? Look, I know you wanted to start this conversation by saying, isn't that exciting that the showrunners are so committed that they're ultra, magna, carta committed? Yay, wonderful. But you know what? The other part of me is thinking that it's a little crazy making, that you can't go at that one critical moment and help your wife deliver a newborn baby. And they need to call you and pester you about where to put the goblins and the dwarves in the camera shot. That can wait a few hours, I think. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? I'm crazy.
Cliff, one of the big concerns we've had since the Tolkien experts left the production early on was how much passion do the guys in control of the show have for Tolkien, and to hear that not even his child's birth would distract him from the job at hand of bringing Tolkien's second age to life is encouraging. I think it's like, okay, these guys are the real deal. Like they live and breathe Tolkien through all parts of their life. That's what this tells me. You've said you've had a cautious optimism. I would like to hold on to some of that cautious optimism, but anyways, we're talking about this new story from this actor who never came on our radar and had not been revealed. Is that true that his name was not revealed in any of the previous? Benjamin Walker. I know Kathy's in the chat room, and I know a lot of you are our regulars. Can you guys look up to see if Benjamin Walker has already been announced in the casting to the 2 casting announcements for the show? Because I don't remember seeing his name. I feel like I would have remembered, because we did deep dives on all the actors. Benjamin Walker was Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I mean, this guy is in a new Netflix show with Liam Neeson, The Ice Road. So he is legit. He is coming up. He played the most important president in the history of our country here, even if he is hunting vampires. So he is.
Okay, that's funny. You're so.
I don't remember this guy. So he's obviously in a big role.
Okay. Yes. Okay, but you're trying to make him sound like Daniel Day-Lewis in a Steven Spielberg film. Okay, come on.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I love Spielberg and I love Daniel Day-Lewis, but Lincoln is boring.
Yep.
Vampire Hunter was way more entertaining to watch.
Okay. All right. All that aside,
Sean, I can't see that link. I can't see the link. Can you just confirm? Andrew in the chat room says, "Hey, baby and wife come before casting." You're on Cliff's side of the thing.
Andrew, our dear friend in the chat, Andrew Laubacker, says that Walker had been mentioned, but I don't recall if it was in an official announcement. So yeah,
So,
indeed.
okay, you know what? Maybe he was announced back in
Oh,
December.
Julia found a Deadline article from last December that included Benjamin Walker being part of Amazon's LOTR. Good sleuthing. Thank you,
Good,
Julia.
good
Thank
catch.
you.
Good
We can
catch.
trust our live audience to help us out every single time. You are the best people. This is the best audience. Thank you for being Tolkien fans with us. Now, look,
And
I
Cliff,
didn't.
so moving on to our next topic at hand,
Oh yes,
something that blew up the internet yesterday.
yes.
Here's another actress that was not on our radar until yesterday. Dana Grant.
Dana Grant.
I've got some pictures up here. Dana Grant. She is one of the top stunt women and stunt doubles in the industry today. As you can see, she has doubled for Furiosa in the Mad Max movie. She has
Fury
doubled
Road.
for Hippolyta in Wonder Woman and Wonder
Hippolyta.
Woman 1984.
I'm going to give it to you for your pronunciation again. It's Hippolyta.
Hippolyta.
Thank you.
Who were both of these actors characters played by?
Wait a minute. I think Charlize Theron obviously was in Fury Road.
Charlize Theron.
And is it not who played Hippolyta
in both Bride?
The one who played in both the Wonder Woman films? That was
the Princess Bride.
I know her name. Yes, from the Princess Bride. Robin Wright Penn, I think.
Robin Wright Penn.
Or Robin Wright in any case. But yeah,
Robin Wright. Yeah. No more Penn. And of course, she was the stunt double, the main stunt double for Xena Warrior Princess
for many seasons.
Dana Grant
for many seasons.
For pretty much the whole show. So, Cliff, let's be clear here. Just as competitive acting roles are, so is it competitive to be stunt doubles for those actors and characters, correct? Like, you really have to be best of the best, top of the industry, be able to perform, to act, and to do stunts, to be able to double for the lead actress in these huge movies. So the expectation for her role is, this isn't just like a random character, random stunt person, random stunty. No, this is the stunt double for the main star of Lord of the Rings.
It is reasonable to assume, although let's be intellectually honest, it is an assumption, but it is a reasonable assumption that Ms. Dana Grant was one of the lead stunt performers for one of the lead roles. And I'm not talking just doing background riding around stuff just to be mixed with 300 other equestrian riders. We're talking hero shots.
We're talking hero shots.
We're talking hero shots.
The most dangerous stunts are reserved for the biggest stars and their stunt people.
Generally, with the greatest risk that's involved, you want someone who's got the most experience. Yeah.
So someone who has played Furiosa, and say her name again, Hippolyta. Yeah. Someone that has performed at that level, this is the equivalent would be Galadriel, or equivalent main character caliber actress.
Or many. She may have been working as a stunt person for several characters in the show.
That's right. So
we also need to remember. Hold on a second. There's a helicopter going over. Sorry about that.
So she has been on Lord of the Rings for several months, or she was on Lord of the Rings for several months, and everything we've heard about the set, we got DMs from other actors on set. We got DMs from brothers of other stunties that are on set. We got an email from some archers, some elven archers, that said they had to wear more protective padding and be surrounded by foam fall blocks, even though they were just pulling a bow. They said the safety and the security on the set was greater than almost any show they'd ever been on. Like, a line of archers. You can imagine at the prologue of Lord of the Rings, when you had all of those elves, and they all go down the line bringing up their swords and pulling back their bows, that type of shot. And so we've heard from a ton of people that the set is super safe, but the story that we still don't know yet, if they actually go to Numenor, this is going to be an action-packed story. I mean, the stunts are going to be dangerous, Cliff. Just from what little we know about the story of Numenor, this is a dangerous story to tell.
Indeed. And I was about to say that the possibility of her working, Ms. Grant, could have been working with many characters. As we know, 20 years ago, they had a huge lack of riders of Rohan who were male equestrian riders. So they got lots and lots of female equestrian skilled
there weren't enough
riders.
men that rode horses in New
As
Zealand.
you saw in that scene where Carl Urban comes around with the small battalion of the riders, and they encircle with their spears all around Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, about half of them were female stunt people and horse riders who had been dressed up in strawberry blonde beards and had been doing the whole thing in man drag to be male Rohirrim. So that happened, and so it's you never know. If it happened 20 years ago,
and listen, we can.
It could happen now that she could be a stunt person for any of the characters, not just Galadriel.
It's
could be
most
anybody.
likely she's a stunt character for a main actor. And Cliff,
I would say yes.
But
Yes.
Before we drop the Rohirrim conversation, let's just be honest. It wouldn't be too far-fetched to consider now, especially with the Tolkien Society seminar coming up this weekend, that some of the Rohirrim could have been women, beards or not. They could have been women in Tolkien's story, but that's not for us to litigate. That is for the Tolkien Society to discuss this weekend. So back to Dana Grant. She rapped on Lord of the Rings back in March or April. We heard that she was just on there for a few months, and only in the last week, I think this weekend, she found out through a regularly scheduled MRI, as stunt people normally do. She found out that she had a brain aneurysm, an undetected brain aneurysm in regularly scheduled MRI. She put up this GoFundMe, or this New Zealand version of GoFundMe, and in one day, she got the whole cost of the surgery. In one day,
she did.
This is and Lucy Lawless, who played Xena, matched many of the donations from the Xena community. So this is from the Xena and Lord of the Rings community, stepped up on an actor to help an actor who is not currently on any productions right now, that got a big health scare and is here to get that handled. So
that is a big success story. Certainly, you look at that and you see the love and the support from the fandom, and it is the fandom. It was definitely fueled by
in the last
it was
10
fueled
minutes,
by all of those fans
Cliff,
of Xena and Mad Max and Lord of the Rings who came to her aid when she needed it.
Cliff, and she's got another 10,000. It's up to 85,000 in the last 10 minutes. This is incredible. She's got such wonderful support.
Yes, in the last 10 minutes.
In the last 10 minutes. This is amazing. That's how well loved she is. Again, Mad Max, Furiosa, Wonder Woman, Ash versus Evil Dead, Xena Warrior Princess, and we don't even know who she plays on Lord of the Rings. But I know many of our Lord of the Rings fans stepped up, gave a little money, $10, $20, every little bit helps, because this is not only to pay for surgery, but, to help the family through this terrible time. So, Cliff, this is an amazing success story, and we're so glad.
On the face of it, on the face of it, yes, there's other stories here in a very complex layer of stories. But yes, we'll take a look at the nicest one first, and I'll agree with that selective editorial choice. Thank you, Justin. It is a success story on that regard, but did it even have to come to that? Is my other question. Let's just let that linger in the air. That
listen.
Did it have to come to that?
Someone tweeted this morning in response to this great news story. He says, I played rugby until I was 34 years old. A concussion from a standard tackle landed me on an MRI table, and they found something underlying. Anyone who takes hits for a living needs yearly full body and head MRIs, regardless of when and where those hits take place. Like, it's just normal for people that are active in this capacity, like a stunt woman or a rugby player or football player or anybody in a job like that, to get regular MRIs. And they found an underlying thing. So the big news is this aneurysm is not an injury from the Lord of the Rings set, which is what some of the headlines were. And maybe some of those headlines might have took some of the words out of context from her Kickstarter page and from our original tweet and stuff like that. So that the aneurysm, the surgery that we just successfully crowdfunded, is an underlying issue.
Yeah.
So,
I understand that. I understand that.
And an MRI is a normal thing for someone of her caliber, of her job.
It is normal. Yes. So, but with all that talk that we just did 15 minutes ago about the outrageous amount of money that the actor was just saying in the interview, look at all this amazing money they're throwing at this. Isn't that something that comes to mind? And it has been circulating in the discourse, the online conversations that I got into, and even I had other really interesting, otherwise really nice, generous fans get into the heated conversation with me on my Twitter feed yesterday. And I have to take responsibility for that. I will own that I was rather shrill. Yesterday I was like shouting very loudly. I was shouting, and maybe I shouldn't be so strident, and I need to take much more care in being a little more kind and a lot less what you'd call high-handed with the way I talk to people online. So this is an abject lesson in me learning about my tone and being more respectful and aware of the way I talk to people online. At least that's a good thing for me as an online personality or commentator. But I wouldn't want to argue with anybody. Allow me to finish my thought. I wouldn't want to argue with anybody about the basics. The basic understanding is that everybody acknowledges that this MRI surgery thing that she needed is maybe not even related at all to an injury that was recently happening on. Why wouldn't they just take care of family, in a sense of taking care of family, and you don't have to go and crowdfund anything?
Well, before you take care of family, you take care of yourself. That's just
my sentiment. That is my personal sentiment, and that's probably all it's worth.
Well, I want to hear that personal sentiment, but Kim Rudolph in the chat room wants to remind everybody. Kim Rudolph in the chat room says everyone should get a full body MRI every year. They could detect cancer or issues years early, and it doesn't even involve radiation. Kim, you're absolutely right. Look,
it's not about the causality. I want to make that very clear to everyone and my live audience. I'm watching your comments.
Well, Cliff, let me read you some of the chat room. Like Eric in the chat room says, it's amazing people did this crowdfund, and they are so amazing, but she should have been covered by her employer. But Cliff, she rapped on Lord of the Rings months ago, so technically they're not her employer.
That's right. I understand that. And I have always said, and I said it twice, and I'll say it again today a third time, live on the internet, I'll say it again, irregardless of whether she was no longer employed by Amazon Studios, it would be the right thing to do. The optics would be fantastic for the studio. The fandom would respond with glorious praise and say, wow, you're really taking care of your stunties. Because I know a lot of stunt performers. They're personal friends of
Baker
mine.
was your roommate when he moved to
Shane
Hollywood.
Shane Rangi and Sala Baker and so many of these other people who I worked with and know who were stunties on the 6-film trilogy. I worry about an industry that has traditionally taken advantage of its stunt performers, and I would not have a problem with the production slowing down for a couple of days and they check everything out on their procedures list and then help her out and make her part of the family. I think that would just be the feel-good story of the year. That would be the feel-good headline in all Lord of the Rings news, and everybody would feel lovely about it. And so, you know what? I don't want to argue with anyone about that, because I think that my position is pretty fair-minded, really.
Let me make clear. Really? Let me understand what you're trying to say. You say you're basically saying, look, now that she's been in Lord of the Rings is a special type of production family, especially going through the pandemic together. And you're saying that because she is in the Lord of the Rings family now, even though we don't know what role she plays yet, there is an expectation that we treat everyone involved with production like family. And as such, the richest company in the history of the world should have, out of the kindness of their own heart, without any legal liability, should say, look, we'll take care of this for you. That's what you're saying?
Hey, you know what? Yeah, I am saying that even though they don't have any causality, and people have told me over and over again on my Twitter feed almost every day, and I don't need to hear it anymore, that there's no causality between an injury she had on the Amazon show and Amazon being culpable. Well, I don't care about making that claim, and I'm not laying this problem at Amazon's feet. I'm just saying, yeah, it would be the right thing to do from a J.R.R. Tolkien moral stance of taking care of your family and taking care of your people who are part of your team. And hold on, I'll also say that I've been an independent film producer. I've also produced an independent film. And if something happened with one of my people and one of my crew, and even wasn't related to my film, I would do whatever I could to help that person because they're family.
Who's to say they didn't? Maybe they did the best that they could, and this was just discovered this weekend.
Okay, maybe, yeah, who knows? That's also true. You know what? I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't in the room, and I have to be fair. I was not in the room.
Let me counterpoint your empathetic response to a very human story, right? Of someone discovering a long-term underlying brain issue. And let's not lose sight of that. She's raised the money, she's getting it done, and she's going to be right back to work. But I seem to recall in the appendices of The Two Towers that the entire cast and crew of Lord of the Rings was making fun of Orlando, complaining about his broken rib for 3 months. He broke a rib when fighting wargs on horseback.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't even give Orlando Bloom the time off to heal a broken rib.
So let's say what we all know is true. We were watching the documentaries behind the scenes for The Two Towers, and we all remember that, not only was Orlando injured with a broken rib, but Viggo Mortensen broke 2 of his toes.
And kicking that helmet, right?
Kicking that helmet. He kicked that helmet, and they kept the shot. He broke 2 toes.
Did you guys know that Viggo broke his toe kicking the orc head helmet?
2 of them.
And that scream of pain and agony is a real scream.
Yeah, they know that. They've all seen the appendices. He broke 2 toes. And also, Peter Jackson admitted on the day when we were to film my favorite scene in the Two Towers book, my 3 runners running across the wilds of Rohan, my 3 runners were the walking wounded. because I had Vigo, who had just broken 2 of his toes, and Orlando with a broken rib, and Brett Beatty, who was the scale double for Gimli, had dislocated his knee. But we didn't have stunt doubles for them because I had to get the shots of them running right past the camera. That's what Peter Jackson said. And you know what? It happens on a film set. I understand the realities of this. You can be injured and still be sent right back to work over and over and over again. Happens all the time.
And that's probably what happened. Look, she is Dana Grant is one of the best in the business, bar none. She is a professional. She is one of the best in the business. And you know, if she took a big hit, she definitely got checked out on set and checked out that day. And you know, the docs probably cleared her to work. Maybe they didn't even clear her to work, and she's like, I'm getting back in there. I mean, we celebrate Viggo Mortensen for continuing to work with broken toes. And we celebrate Orlando Bloom for continuing to work with a broken rib. Do you think he still has pain in his rib 20 years later? You know, you know, some of that stuff never heals. You always feel it. So, you know, as professional as they are, Dana Grant is just as professional. She probably just shook it off. And, you know, to the chat, to people in the chat room saying, you know, we know a lot more now about brain injuries and CTE scans and the whole debate over football and, you know, brain injuries and stuff like that. You don't mess with brain injuries. But the fact is that we celebrate Viggo and Orlando for getting back to set and just powering through. That's exactly what Dana Grant probably did. Just, you know, she took a tumble, got up and continued on, finished her work on Lord of the Rings, and then found this a few months later when she was going for regularly scheduled MRI. So I'm so excited that she hit. Let's see if it's gone up during this conversation. Hit refresh. Look at that, another $400 during this conversation. Boy, the fans are absolutely supporting Dana Grant. Again, she says right here, after experiencing symptoms of traumatic brain injury, Dana was sent for MRI scans, and that's when they found it. So, you know, she was experiencing symptoms of it, and from a lifetime of the best stunt work in the world. Again, did you guys watch Mad Max Fury Road? Like, that movie is one of the most physical movies in the history of cinema. That movie was incredibly intense. So Arnie, our regular in the chat room, posts, Orlando Bloom fell out of a 3-story window and broke his back. The doctors predicted he wouldn't walk again. Sean Astin had his foot pierced on set in the river. That's right. You remember that, Cliff? Sean Astin had his foot pierced. And remember that Sean explains how there was blood in those big foots, in those big foot booties that they had to wear for their hairy feet. They powered through. They just kept working. So congrats to Dana. You know, it's great to see IndieWire had a great post today showing the support of fans. I think there were a bunch of other blogs that picked up on the story. Again, you know, we saw these tweets from our old pal Dallas Barnett about the fundraiser at midnight on Sunday night, Monday morning. So it was just like, all right before we go to bed, let's try to help this lady raise some money, and we did it. But
good, we sure did.
I get what you're saying, Cliff. Now that she's in the Lord of the Rings family, and Amazon is spending $1 billion on this TV show, you would think it's such an easy. It's almost like it's a big win for everybody if Amazon had just seen this and been like, cool, we'll take care of it. You need 60 grand. We'll take care of it. We love you. We want to work with you on season 2. Like, cool. Like,
yes. Yes,
it
indeed.
feels like an easy thing that the showrunners, the producers, anyone at Amazon could have seen the thing that she was going through and been like, you know what, your family.
Indeed, I would agree with that. That's the humanism in me speaking from that point of view. And it is not about putting a legal burden on anyone. It's not trying to say, oh, anybody at Amazon Studios was at fault. No, it's not at that. We acknowledge that no one's taking the fault or blame. What we're acknowledging is that no one is taking care of their family and their crew the way that I would like to see it done. But again, that's just one man's opinion out here. That's all I got. That's all I got. That's really all I've got, my friends. It is a human interest story. It's not a story about causality. Oh, you can't put the causality of the injury and lay it at the feet of the Lord of the Rings production. That is never what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a more humane way of treating your people.
Look, bigger picture, Cliff. Let's go way back. Okay, it's well known. Yes. It's a well-known fact that Peter Jackson's filming of Lord of the Rings was so fast and so loose that the New Zealand government had to institute some new laws and regulations to protect performers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's well known. Okay, so secondly, when they got to The Hobbit, and if you watch Lindsay Ellis's 2-part documentary on YouTube, Lindsay Ellis goes into some allowances that the New Zealand government gave to the production of The Hobbit. You know,
yes,
that may or may not protect actors and stunt performers as well as they would be protected in Los Angeles, let's say. And then we know for a fact that Amazon, when they negotiated the filming rebates with New Zealand, we've heard that they wanted to extend the Hobbit allowances. So this isn't just like a finite little thing. This is like, all right, Peter Jackson did a thing. It was kind of loosey-goosey. It was great, but it was loosey-goosey. It was a little bit dangerous. Orlando Bloom had a broken rib for a few months. Sean Astin stabbed his foot. Everyone broke something on Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, he stepped on a rock in the lake, and maybe it was a bottle. It may have been a glass bottle in the lake, but he cut his foot very badly, sliced it badly. Poor Sam. Poor Samwise.
So
yeah,
it's
well, if you think those lead actors had all those bruises and breaks and busted toes, imagine what the stunties had to deal with creating the Battle of Helm's Deep.
All I'm saying is everything we've heard from current stunties and current actors on Amazon set, it sounds way more safer than what Peter Jackson was doing.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty confident that they've had excellent safety review since the last injury happened in a dive tank a while back. I forgot how far ago that was, but yeah, I know they're running a safe set, generally speaking, but I still think that what I advocated for yesterday is a good idea, that they pause for a day, maybe a day or two, and check everybody out, check everything out, and, make the right moves in terms of making sure that your team members, the people on your crew, are all right with everything and that they're taken care of. And even though, even though Dana Grant went and worked on a couple of other productions after she finished working on photography, and she worked on a couple of other shows, we're looking at an injury that may have been from a whole lifetime of different injuries and things. It could have been, we don't know. But I don't care. I don't care that I don't know, and I don't think Amazon should care that they don't know about the causality. Just take the causality out of the equation and put the humanism in the equation. That's all I have to say about that, really.
And
the humanism.
You mentioned the stunt performer that got hit on the head in the water tank early on in the first few weeks of Amazon's Lord of the Rings. I've got an update. Alyssa Cadwell had the best support from Amazon. She got through her surgeries. She's been on a couple projects since. In fact, she went from New Zealand back to Australia. She's currently in Venice Beach right now, enjoying the sun on Venice Beach. So Alyssa Caldwell, who hit her head in the water tank of possibly the Fall of Numenor, who knows? Early on in the production, like, she was well taken care of, and she has said as such that she healed so quickly and was back at work, and we think Dana Grant is going to get the best care. Kim in the chat room says we should have universal health care and not rely on big corporations. I agree with that, but let's explain. And I wish we had someone from New Zealand here on the show. New Zealand has universal health care. They do. So why does Dana need to crowdfund $6,000 for brain surgery? Well,
good question.
What we have heard from locals in New Zealand is she can get the surgery for free, but because it's not like bleeding out of her head right now, it's considered not life-threatening emergency right now. So,
and they'd make her wait a very long time for the process.
And you know what?
That's a common criticism that gets leveled at the NHS, the National Health Service in England, in merry old England. Of course, that's a common.
Same in New Zealand. So the wait list was 4 months long. And if you can imagine, like, knowing that there's a brain aneurysm that could pop in your head at any time, and, are you going to take work? Are you going to take stunt work for the rest of the year, knowing that it could pop if you do something crazy on a set? Look, it was in her best interest personally to find a private hospital that will take cash to do the surgery, and rather than wait 4 months. Because of the crowdfund, because we've let me refresh. Because we've raised $86,000.
Gosh, that jumped another 1,000.
She can get the surgery in the next couple of weeks.
That's brilliant, and that is a very, very happy ending. That is the ultimate happy ending to this story. And the next stage, obviously, is for the surgery to go very well, and then we'll get to the happy ending at the end of that tale. That's where we want to be.
All right, Cliff, we're nearing the end of the show, but we have to mention what's going on this weekend. The Tolkien Society is putting on their annual seminar this weekend.
That's right.
July 3rd and 4th, so it's this Saturday and Sunday.
And for some reason, the Tolkien Society has stayed under the radar of, for, being in headlines for, political culture war garbage, and now suddenly, for no reason at all, for really no reason at all, the Tolkien Society has suddenly hit the headlines in a way that they never expected. Really.
Well, and so they're getting criticized from conservative outlets like the Washington Times and the Federalist, and they might even be featured on Tucker Carlson. Who knows? But they
my goodness! I read that piece, The Federalist, and it was the most uninformed piece of garbage journalism that I've read in a long time. And the person who wrote that does not at all clearly understand things about J.R.R. Tolkien scholarship the way that the rest of us do.
Well, Alexander in the chat room says those seminars are so anti-Tolkien. Would you please expand on why you think that's anti-Tolkien? Because the Tolkien Society was created while Tolkien was alive. He is president for life and president after life. His family is on the board of directors.
Priscilla Tolkien, specifically. Priscilla.
Like the Tolkien Society is not a fan, not just a little fan group. Like, this is the most legit official organization that is dedicated to
scholarly scholarship. Let me say that out loud again. Scholarly scholarship. It's not pretend. It's not just a fan website or some YouTube content provider who's trying to barf up something to score political tribal points. No, the Tolkien Society has been there forever. And you know what they do every year? They rotate different topics, and they rotate next year another subject of intellectual vigor
Well,
and intellectual inquiry. And just because of their chosen subject of diversity,
well,
and
let's build up to that.
this is what's such a funny thing to me. It never bothered anyone before.
So if we go back to previous years,
so funny to me.
The themes of the Tolkien Society seminar, which is one of the most well-respected events every year. In 2006, they had politics and Middle Earth. In 2007, the theme was women in Tolkien. 2007, their offshoot North New South Wales, Sydney event was Tolkien and the Art of Science and Magic. In 2008, they had a conference called Freedom, Fate, and Choice in Middle Earth.
Now that's an existential crisis right there. I could spend an entire weekend having an existential crisis, studying these incredible scholarly papers, talking about whether, Tolkien illustrated that fate would govern you every step of the way, or whether you had an active free will, which is something that Loki is facing in this new TV series. Loki,
in 2018, the title of the seminar was Tolkien the Pagan, Reading Middle Earth Through a Spiritual Lens. And so this goes all the way up to this year's theme, which is Tolkien and diversity. This is the theme of this year, Tolkien and diversity. So I want to be clear, Cliff, it sounds like previous years have not shied away from the most challenging topics and scholarship related to Tolkien.
So why didn't the conservative media start kicking and screaming back then? That's why I'm telling you, this is just clickbait. It's just, you know what, we've understood something about this, because we look at the IP servers and we look at these accounts that come and make postings on our timeline, and they are brand new fake bots. They're not real people. They're not real Twitter accounts. They're bots. They are all awake in the Balkans and in Russia time, and they start posting at 8 in the morning, Moscow time, when they start. And we look at these IP addresses and we know that these are fake accounts. They don't have any followers.
But a lot of them are
I'm talking about the general complaints that have been in the echo chamber of online media. Most of the complaints have been drummed up nonsense from fake accounts, as usual, trying to cause a ruckus of a culture war that isn't even there.
Well,
so I find it very tiring.
How am I not supposed to get triggered when the very first panel on this Saturday, July 3rd, which you can still sign up for and watch online, it's all virtual. The
ability to have virtual panels at the Tolkien Society is actually a great gift to people who could not otherwise travel and be there in person.
Well, how am I not supposed to be triggered when it says a brief introduction to transgender realities in Lord of the Rings? Cliff, come on.
Exactly.
What do you like? Come on. You're telling me that they didn't want this dialogue?
I'll tell you what. If the hyper conservative people making abusive and negative comments don't appreciate the fact that there's a worldwide community of different people out there that might be a little bit different from you, and that's okay too. And when they read J.R.R. Tolkien, they love all the things about J.R.R. Tolkien that you love, but sometimes people love things that are different. They recognize characters and thematic construct, and they recognize, most importantly, applicability. Because, as you know, Professor Tolkien was very much against the tyranny of the author forcing his readers to have, clumsy metaphors pushed up their nose all the time. Professor Tolkien always, and it's stated very clearly, and all of scholarship knows this, that applicability was the magic ingredient that Tolkien preferred. And would that not therefore naturally allow other people who might be of a different stripe than you, that's okay too. Maybe they read something applicable into Professor Tolkien that you never thought of before. So, to all of my lovely people in fandom and all of our audience members out there, far and wide, I don't care if you voted for somebody last year or if you're red state or blue state.
What are you?
I don't care.
Talking, Cliff.
Let me tell you. Let me finish.
Topic.
Allow me.
Panel,
I am.
The first panel is a brief introduction to transgender realities in Lord of the Rings. I've never heard of such things in Lord of the Rings.
I'm going to finish my statement. It doesn't matter whether they're studying transgender realities in Lord of the Rings, because other people around the world have discovered that. And maybe it's a new idea that no one else discovered. So let's talk about it in a friendly way and see what kind of scholarship we have. Why is that so threatening to anybody? I'm trying to say in my previous sentence that I will sit down and break bread with you, the fans. I don't care who you are or what political background you come from. I'll sit down and break bread with you any day and talk about how much you love Tolkien. And I'm glad to do that too. And the people at the Tolkien Society are doing that too, even for LGBTQ spaces that have never opened up very much, so that people could actually have a more vigorous intellectual understanding of how all these different people respond in new and unique ways. What is the problem? Tell me right now, come to my Twitter feed, anybody out there, and say, oh, Tolkien was a Catholic. He was such a devout Catholic, he would have had stern disapproval of anybody being transgender anything. Okay, well, maybe Professor Tolkien's Catholic ideas would have had him approving or disapproving of a whole bunch of different things. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that the Tolkien Society wants to introduce the intellectual discourse of people around the world responding, having a response to the literature. This is what my movie is about. My motion picture is about Western culture having a response to Tolkien. That's all we talk about every Tuesday, is how people respond to his books. So what is the problem? Whether Tolkien would have been disapproving of the conversation or not is irrelevant. It is irrelevant.
What about the fans that they're not wrong when they say Tolkien was a very much devout Catholic? In fact,
they're not wrong.
He was angry at C.S. Lewis for choosing Protestantism over Catholicism when he found Christ. This man was very devout Catholic. So how can you?
He was so devout, he was upset at them changing the liturgy to English. And he sat there like a stubborn man in the church shouting back in Latin because he wanted to respond in Latin. So not in English. I understand this. Look, I understand more than anybody how devout a Catholic he was. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay too.
So do you think Tolkien would avoid the transgender conversation completely because he didn't believe in it?
No, I think that he would avoid the transgender conversation probably because in his time of life, where he was in the 19th century, in the earlier 20th century, I mean to say that he probably wouldn't have approved of talking about it because of him not knowing about it. And just not knowing anybody.
Do you think Tolkien put things in Middle Earth that he did not personally agree with?
He actually wrote something in the Silmarillion about the spirits of the Maiar, the Valar, being able to take either a male or female position. And he opened up this conversation. Yeah, take a look at that. Please show this on the screen. Let's read this out loud.
And this is straight from the Silmarillion, from the pen of the professor himself. It says
this is him actually. This is probably the closest he ever came to talking about gender in such a way that it seems liquid in its concept. But he says in the Silmarillion, but when they clad themselves, the Valar arrayed themselves in the form and temper, some as of male and some as of female. And the choice that they made herein proceeded, doubtless, from that temper that each had from their uttermost beginning. For male and female are not matters only of the body any more than of the raiment. And Professor Tolkien has a very, very clear awareness, as he says right there, male and female are not matters only of the body, any more than of the raiment. He is acknowledging that matters of gender are spiritual, body chemical, that they are much more than just body, that they are mental, they're mental, spiritual, physical, and all these other complex things that we've been talking about for a long time with modern science, having new studies and new approaches to studying human sexuality. And
well,
I just don't have a problem with this. I don't have a problem with that at all. I do not have any problem with any of this intellectual inquiry at all. Really.
The fact that the fact that you just quoted this thing from the Silmarillion, and then the first panel is a brief introduction to transgender realities in Lord of the Rings. It sounds like the Tolkien Society is not leftist woke. This is actually Tolkien scholarship at its most fundamental effort.
Yeah, I mean, if you could say you and I are participating in a tiny microcosm of Tolkien scholarship,
yes,
putting up that statement and saying, let's learn from this. What does this indicate about Professor Tolkien's knowledge or awareness and how he articulates gender issues? Well, there was one interesting way he articulated a gender issue, and that was with Éowyn. Éowyn, who was kept within boundaries of her life because of her womanhood, because of her gender, and wasn't able until she snuck out the side door and put on some fake armor, dressed herself up as a dude, was she allowed to break away from patriarchal authority and go and make a presence of herself as a woman in the world. And yeah, there's a lot of intellectual and scholarly conversation about Éowyn, and I'm sure that they'll be talking about Éowyn a lot this weekend at the Tolkien Society. And I'm intrigued by all of this. I'm intrigued by the amount of vitriol that's been thrown around unnecessarily at the Tolkien Society for.
Well, someone was asking, how do you watch? How do you participate in this? Because it's virtual this year, they will actually be live streaming it on YouTube for free, and it will be on Zoom that I think you can join as a webinar. But the easiest way to watch is just go to the Tolkien Society YouTube page, hit that subscribe button. I think they're going to stream it for free, which is all the better. Although I already feel bad for their YouTube chat moderators if they're really going to stream this on YouTube, because the discourse on Twitter has been absolutely toxic.
Unfortunately, yes.
From fans that claim that they're fans, but they have never followed either of our accounts. They have never commented in their whole past life anything related to Tolkien, and it's curious that the people that consider that claim that they know Tolkien better than anybody and his Catholicism is A1. We just showed that even if Tolkien didn't believe in, even if Tolkien was a Catholic and the Catholic Church did not support transgender rights in 1954, Tolkien put it in his book. And
it was probably something he wrote in the Silmarillion a long time ago, before the 1950s. You never know.
Tolkien's message was to love one another. They will always be a light, even in the darkest place.
Yeah.
That is absolutely correct, Arne.
Yep. That's what it comes back to. Thank you, Arne, for saying that. Thank you.
We can have a whole nother conversation with people way smarter than me on how bad people have embraced Tolkien authentically to further an evil agenda. And going back to the 1930s, I'm thinking, what happened between 1937 and 1945? So there were some bad people that were fully embracing Tolkien and were true fans of him and his work, but used his stories in a manner that Tolkien didn't approve of, and it's well known in his letters. And this goes back to the whole thing of allegory versus application. And the fact is
Applicability.
that applicability, and the fact is, whatever the Tolkien Society seminar is this year, and all of the things, it's because they found true scholars and true fans that have an opinion, and they want to explore that. Just like in all previous years, where they've talked about all matter of things related to people's perspectives of Lord of the Rings, but there is no one true, this is what Lord of the Rings means. And Tolkien was explicit in that.
Of course, it is not monolithic. It is not a monolith, and it cannot be gate kept like that. So y'all need to stop it. There you go. I said it. I said it. Okay, what a great show. Thank you, everybody, for being with us today and for talking through some details that are probably much more interesting to some of us than others. And at least we got through the sticky parts without getting hurt. And you know what? Hey, we got out fine. We got out of this conversation just fine.
At the end of the day, you guys should make time this Saturday and Sunday. And again, the Tolkien Society is based in London, in the UK. So their panels will be shown on UK timeline, which would be early for us on the Pacific Coast, right? So make sure you check your schedules. It's going to be worth. The speakers that they have are just wonderful. The topics that they're covering are wonderful. And it turns out the first topic that we just explored briefly is actually true to Tolkien. So the whole thing is true to Tolkien. And I can't encourage that enough. And, if you like what you see for free on YouTube, please consider donating and joining them. A few people in the chat room have said that they joined the Tolkien Society based on the recommendations of the show, and we appreciate that. Again, there's no kickbacks here. We don't get a commission on that. We just want to spread the love and joy of Tolkien. And
indeed.
So
and
look, Cliff,
and hey, I will also personally say I applaud the Tolkien Society for having such an interesting rotation of subjects every year and always making it fresh and interesting, because that's kind of cool that it never goes stale. You can approach scholarship to Tolkien decades later and discover so many cool new things, and it never goes stale. I love that.
By this time next year, I'm just taking a wild guess of what next year's seminar is going to be like. I think the hot button topic of Tolkien fans, especially if the Amazon show has been released by next July, is going to be timelines of Middle Earth.
Timelines. Why timelines are important and why you cannot mess around with them.
Yeah. Wait, there aren't hobbits in the Second Age. There's no wizard. The wizards didn't come until the Third Age.
Exactly. No wizards and no hobbits in the Second Age, and you know what? We're going to get them anyways. So.
Dragons? We haven't seen dragons around here.
There's lots of dragons, though. All right. Okay, good stuff. I have to say thank you again to the live audience for being with us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, and YouTube. And everywhere else.
Thank you to Tolkien Society for not bowing down to a fight. Sean Gunner and the rest of the Tolkien Society has not shied away from debate and to try to retake the narrative away from what the trolls would have the narrative be. And so I appreciate that. And you know what? Shout out to Amazon for running a safe set, because, as we just discussed, Peter Jackson's set, as much as we love Peter Jackson and everybody, let's be honest, Peter Jackson's set is a mess. And, we can laugh about it in the appendices, but, everybody broke something on Lord of the Rings. We laugh about it now. So, the fact that everything we're hearing out of Amazon set it's a super safe set. Amazon has taken care of all of their performers, and I love that the community came back around.
They did
to support the latest member of the Lord of the Rings family. Again, let's hit refresh. another $200 since our last refresh. This is just great. I appreciate all of the support from the fans. Dana, we love you, even though we don't know fully what you've done for Lord of the Rings. We know that you worked on it for 6 months. We know you're probably one of the main characters, and whatever you probably like, based on everything else you've done in your career, it's been like, we're gonna get great stuff out of the show. It's literally like, when Jeff Bezos said, "Get me the best," they literally got the best. She is the best.
Yes.
And it's wonderful that we're already supporting her sight unseen. And you know what, Cliff, you do have a point. Now that she's family, Amazon's kind of in control of things. Maybe there was some goodwill gesture that could have happened. Maybe can still happen. Who knows? But it's not for us or anyone to fault anything. Like, the good deed is done. The fans have supported a valuable member, and you know what? All I want to know is, does Orlando's wound, broken rib, still hurt?
Let's ask Katy Perry. Let's ask Katy.
Based on the paddleboarding pictures, it looks like his
don't even
fully healed.
Don't even mention those paddleboarding photos. Poor Orly without his pants on.
You didn't have to describe it. What are you doing?
You have to give our audience a heart attack. We're an innocent little G-rated show here. Okay, this was an interesting and invigorating conversation. Thank you, Justin, for pulling all the technical strings to get the show broadcast. I'm sorry, Julia, I couldn't help it. The YouTube chat is like, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing?" But I hate to say this, but I never finished watching season 1 of Carnival Row. I just wasn't into it. So I'm really looking forward to the next project that Orlando is in. And I hope his broken rib feels better. And I really am glad that Dana Grant is feeling like all the love. She's feeling all the love from all the fandom right now. And that is a great, great place to be. And that's what we do. We are the fandom. We are, generally speaking, the fans of J.R.R. Tolkien, and we're good to each other. So this is the OneRing.net. We are signing off, right?
If you go to our Twitter account at the OneRing.net, all one word on Twitter, there's a video message from Dana Grant thanking the fans for all the support. Also, please, we've got a tweet up saying, what do you think the Lord of the Rings show should be named? Some wonderful responses from Sean Gunner, the president of the Tolkien Society. Cliff, I know you had some good ones, so I
thought the word Chronicles is probably going to show up, not Legendarium, but I think the word
it's Legendarium.
Chronicles is going to show up.
I think they should call the show Lord of the Rings Legendarium, and then each season is whatever, like American Horror Story.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, an anthology series is something I advocated years ago, but no one ever talked to me about.
The one thing that Reddit and I have argued for 2 years now on is, I promise you guys, Amazon did not pay $1 billion to not use the name Lord of the Rings in the title.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Yeah. It's going to be
$1 billion to use the name Lord of the Rings. The story is about Sauron. He is the Lord of the Rings because he makes rings and distributes rings as the Lord of the Rings. That's what the show is.
It will be the Lord of the Rings, subtitle. Going back in time, it would be like, like right now it's the Lord of the Rings, the War of the Rohirrim, right? If that's the new movie that Warner Brothers Animation is working on, and I'm deeply excited about that. It's the Amazon TV show will be The Lord of the Rings, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle. It'll just be the subtitle of the ages. And I would love some speculation from all the fans. Let's get some more of this going. Let's get more speculation of what we think the subtitle is going to be. But I guarantee you, it'll be Lord of the Rings, ... something else. We'll see what it is. And I say Chronicles of Middle-earth or whatever. I don't know. Not very imaginative, but we'll see.
All right, this weekend, YouTube, wake up early, watch the Tolkien Society seminar. I'm Justin, that's Cliff. been a great show.
It has been a great show. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Please take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next Tuesday. That's right, next Tuesday, right here at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, here at theonering.net. And so until then, you can follow us at The One Ring Net on all of our social channels. And me and my noisy little strident voice, I'm at QuickBeam2000. So pay no attention to me. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. All right. We love you guys. Thanks for being with us again and for keeping it respectful and creative and wonderful and supportive. We're all here together in this. Until next time, take good care, good night, and good luck, or as I prefer to say, buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Did you see the pictures of the ice trolls?